Friday together. And how do we do not just our Fridays, but our Fridays, our Saturdays, and our Sundays? We do it the Canadian way. And to my friends in the United States, or friends in Latin America, this is the Canadian way. And I'm sorry, I haven't translated this. Not yet, at least, but maybe I will. Maybe I will for diversity's sakes. We begin our streams with Canada's newest land acknowledgement, and it goes something like this. We would like to gently acknowledge that we're standing on the traditional territory of, well, whoever was here and savagely killing each other at the time. Anyway, they aren't in charge anymore. We're here until the Americans take over. Sip. Good morning, everybody. I hope somebody sends that to the Carney Liberals or the other crazy party, whatever it is, at some point. It's so funny. It just goes how scripted not just the media is, but all the outrage. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. And I'll map up a couple of things. First is I told you it would get warmer, right? The sun has come out. Things are a little bit warmer. The days are getting longer. So there's so many good things going on. I've had a couple of people ask me, by the way, to tell me they loved the intro music, which, okay, that's better feedback than I thought I would get. I have put together almost, I don't know, I'm trying to put together kind of an album, I guess you would call it, and work with Spotify and kind of an intermediary. And, I've exported like hundreds of tracks. For you don't know, I've explained this before. The AI-assisted music phenomenon will be the equivalent of what DJs were in the 1980s. It's just going to become normal, especially for those of us who have a music background, and we use it as a tool and can really refine it with our music skills, maybe better than people who don't know music very well. And so, yeah, everything that all the lyrics, everything is the prompt, the structure of the song, timing, key signature, all that stuff is me, and the post editing as well. So if you are musically inclined, I strongly suggest you delve into AI music generators, just like you do ChatGPT or Claude or all the other LLMs, because it just takes your workload. It just tremendously reduces it, and the amount of output is absolutely amazing. We're going to talk more about AI in a minute, and then we're going to get into Bad Bunny and all the nonsense we've seen this weekend. But this week. But the lesson is, don't fear AI. Lean into it. I promise. It will change your life for the better, but like everything in life, there are trade-offs, and there are going to be trade-offs for AI as well. By the way, is everybody loving based John Cleese? John Cleese from Monty Python. For those who don't know, John Cleese has become very vocal on some important issues, publicly and online, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that over the next couple of days. Just to review a couple of things, I wanted to ask: Did any of you do the test? The test with the cognitive dissonance test. For those who weren't here last stream, so I'll explain it. Basically, the short version is I mapped out how to experience shifting people into cognitive dissonance and what to look for. Because once you do that, and this comes in terms of communicating with people on the other side and unbrainwashing them, it essentially allows you to slip them into what's called the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, and then you know what to look for, and you can tell when somebody has an original thought, or they've just been assigned an opinion, which we see a lot of nowadays. And just to review, the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance are: they change the topic, they mind read, ad hominem, word salad, analogy instead of a reason, not analogy to support a reason, it's too complicated, you'll never understand, or the so you're saying straw man. And we're going to talk more about those themes moving on, as we have for quite a bit, because I think this is important to understand from a comms strategy, and you saw I was using some of these skill sets during the trucker convoy and other previous political stuff that I was engaged with. And once you understand this means of communication, it's going to be a lot easier for you to communicate with friends and family around you who don't understand the culture war and are struggling to get it. Risa loves the song. Well, thank you, Risa. You are amazing. Did you listen to the lyrics? Because the lyrics, that's where the important part is, and I can't go into any more detail because if I do, then it will spoil it. So, but anyways, so the idea, the way you can test if somebody has an assigned opinion and they slip into cognitive dissonance is when you tell them that, in his words, you can say, I quote, "I do not like Israel at all," said Jeffrey Epstein to Deepak Chopra in emails in the Epstein files. You want to do this with somebody who's just got kind of a bug up their rear about Israel, test it with them, and you'll see very quickly they're going to slip into one of the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance. And by the way, this is not about whether you agree with that opinion or not. That this is just an communication exercise. Try it and see if you can get a response, and you can slip that person into one of the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance. Because so many of those people, they're trapped in an emotional state, and they're also, then there's the activists online, they're in the motivational state. I've discussed before Rice, which we'll go into more another time, why people do things. And it's very different it's very, very different. It's biased to a couple of these in politics. Just for a review, Rice is the reason we do things. It's the reason everybody does things. And yes, a lot of people will argue that, well, all goes down to, accumulation of food and appropriation, to develop, shall we say, intimate relations, that those are the 2 things that fuel us. Yes, that is true, but rice is what you see in terms of the tactics: rewards, ideology, coercion, or ego. And when you understand that's how people operate, it becomes very easy to distinguish who's completely deceptive in politics and what is motivating them. And it gets quite disappointing sometimes. Maureen, good morning to you as well. And Jesse, good morning. But I think you have to go to your lawyer, you said to me over Discord. So go have fun and have an amazing day. So the other thing we discussed, a couple more things we discussed over on BlueSky. BlueSky is my Soviet terminology for BlueSky because they're all communists. They're all communist bots, right? You may remember we went into this in a little bit more detail the last time, but I said it's a very good way to gauge. Don't worry about the bot accounts, but the individuals as well, just to get a sense of how distorted their worldview is. I've been working a lot trying to get into spaces on the other side. I don't mean Twitter spaces, but online communities, just to understand the cognitive bias that's often been programmed into them and how to strip away at that. And it is very possible to get people to change their mind. This is why you get so frustrated with people, activists or political experts. People don't change their minds. Well, yeah, tell that to John Cleese. That's a perfect example of somebody who has changed not only their mind, but their rhetoric, and has gained some confidence to push back in the public sphere. So anyways, the reason I bring up BlueSky, why did we talk about BlueSky last time? Does everybody know? Does anyone know why we spoke about it? There was one particular topic that I brought up around BlueSky. The topic was the monkey hoax. Remember the monkey hoax? Do you remember? You may not. I'm guessing most people won't remember monkey hoax, even though it was less than 7 days ago. Some of you will, those of you who are passionately involved in the online discourse. But my guess is about 90% of people don't even remember what BlueSky is. Canadian Jess says BlueSky is liberal hell. It's not even liberal. It's communist. If it was liberal, at least you could talk to people. You may disagree, but you could at least talk to them. I don't mean liberal party or liberal activists. I mean liberal, philosophically liberal people. It's not that at all. It's even worse. So the monkey hoax, that was the meme that Trump posted of uh, Obama and Big Mike. What's I say that jokingly. I always remember I always forget his wife's name. That's how far they're removed from my conscious mind at this point. But it was the meme that went all over and the media was crazy about and whatever. It was Obama and his wife were their faces in a long video of many people in the animal kingdom. Their faces were superimposed on top of, I guess they were gorillas or apes or something. And it's funny that I brought this up last time, that nobody cared that Hillary Clinton, her face was overlaid on top of a wild pig. No one seemed to care about that. I even asked that in BlueSky. Nothing. Crickets. They just all run away from it. But the fact that it's been less than 7 days, you're not hearing it every second. You heard about it, what, for 1 day, maybe 2 days. And most people have forgot about it. You know, what does that tell you? What can we conclude from that? That's right. It was never real. That was completely orchestrated and fabricated. That was a PR campaign. It was one of those ad hoc reactionary PR campaigns. And we dealt with that during the trucker convoy as well, and other stuff that I've been involved with. And if you're very good at thinking on your feet, like some people are, you just kind of grab a message, construct a narrative that completely distorts it, and put it out there. So that was all completely fabricated, and it's fake. And another indicator that it's fake is, even though it's not even a week, doesn't it feel like, for many of you, it feels like it was a long time ago now? It feels like, when I remind you of it, you now know consciously because of the event that it was around, but doesn't it feel like it's quite some time ago? There's a reason for it. That's called time distortion, which is an element of hypnosis. So I'll leave that there for you to ponder what's going on in the world. We discussed Javier Milei, which we all love, and Mamdani, the garbage king of New York. For anybody who's watching in New York, because I know there's a whole bunch of people watching today, how is the rat situation on the streets of New York? And we're going to talk a little bit about New York in a couple of minutes. This is what happens when you elect a jihadi colonizer. This is just where we're going. And learn the word Hydra. We'll talk more about Hydra in future episodes as well. We also discussed Billy and Hillary Clinton, their marriage of convenience in politics. And somebody asked me, what percentage of political marriages, in my experience, are marriages of convenience, meaning they're just business deals. In many cases, most cases, it's actually a gay man and a lesbian woman. And just so everybody knows, I'm very socially libertarian, to the point that it's uncomfortable for many of my social conservative friends. And I get that. I understand different worldviews. But I was asked, what percentage are are of marriages of convenience? What percentage in politics are marriages of convenience? Well, if there's anybody who's listening from the Scott Adams audience, I'm going to ask it this way. You're going to love it. And the question is, how can I word the question? The question, I'll word it this way. What percentage of political marriages are marriages of convenience? What do you think it is? Take a guess. What percentage? 25%. Exactly. My guess is actually somewhere between 25 and 30% of political marriages are people who have very deep issues or very severe cases of psychopathy. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are just really disturbing people that get into politics. They're the people very lazy and very lazy, but very ambitious. So they won't do any work. They want everybody to do any work and everybody to do their work. And they feel that they are the ones who are dominant in every situation, even though they haven't earned it. So speaking of those types of people, the mayor, the garbage king of New York, Mamdani, there is a post that's going around, and I reworded it a little bit just to correct the words. And it reads this. I can't remember who put this up. I'm sorry. I try to get people's posts on here when I can, but I was running so many windows and having problems this morning, so I apologize. But I reworded it anyways. Uh, the post is this: the leader of the terrorism riots in New York, Nardine Kiswani, is now calling for a ban on dogs and pets in the city. Dogs are considered haram for the religion of peace, or that part of the religion of peace. This is why I and many others, we talk about the extremists, because we're trying to protect your dogs and cats. I like dogs. I like cats. Who doesn't like dogs and cats? Like, what kind of human are you? But anyways, so the garbage king of New York administration is now trying to pace and lead or utilize behavioral nudge theory to make the idea of banning animals from the city as an acceptable form of discourse. And I hope anybody who is in New York will immediately shut that down before that even gets any legs. It's one of those things. Everybody's got the Mike Tyson quote I love. Everyone's got a everyone's got a plan until they got punched in the face. They need to be punched in the face. I don't say physically. I'm talking politically. Get all the cat ladies together in New York and tell them what their views are on pets, and that pets should be banned. Little Fluffy has to be expelled and euthanized. That's exactly what they advocate. Anyways, a couple of things on AI, and then we'll get into the Bad Bunny and other other nonsense. So there was a Trump meme that I came across, I think early this morning, late last night, something like that, and some of you may have seen it. And that was Donald Trump playing. It was a video of Donald Trump playing hockey, scoring on Team Canada. Did you see that? Didn't you see that? It was, I mean, AI videos getting very, very impressive. And it was it's hysterical. It's Trump on skates wearing a suit and everybody else wearing their uniforms. But I thought of that, and then something else that popped up on my feed earlier in this week, and that was the Bitcoin store in El Salvador, in El Zonte. El Zonte is Bitcoin Beach, and shout out to Ronnie. And so it's a little store right on the beach. It's a surfer town, and there was a picture of Shakira there, and Shakira, who for those of you who don't know, is a massive pop artist throughout Latin America, around the world actually. And she was in El Salvador for a concert, and lots of people saw the picture of Ronnie and Shakira at the Bitcoin store. Small country, everybody kind of knows each other. I think the population of El Salvador is 9 million, if I'm not mistaken. And the fact that she could end up in what's become a tourist destination in El Salvador, because El Zonte is a very small little town, very cute, is not completely out of the realm of possibility. And so many of us saw that and saw, oh, well, great. That's very cool. Congratulations. That's awesome. Well, it was completely fake. Right. And I think I could put that under a couple of categories now. One is you got to be very skeptical of pictures that you see now, unfortunately. And the other one is something that Scott Adams talked about, which I've talked a little bit about this on this stream because I've been through it, much like Scott and other people have. Nothing you read about a public figure is real. Nothing. I remember, during our protests in Ottawa, I got a call from I got a call from my mom. She was upset with me. She said, "I'm very upset with you." And I said, "Why? Well, what now? What I do?" And she said, "Well, I'm reading in the paper that you are married with 2 children. How can you be hiding my grandchildren from me all this time?" And I said, "Yeah, apparently yesterday they said I was gay, and I am neither. I am in neither of those 2 situations." Nothing you read, and this was, I think, in the Toronto Toilet Star or whatever it is. It was in one of those, or the Communist Broadcasting Crap, which is the CBC. One of those 2 were putting those stories out. Nothing you read about a public figure is real. I know it's difficult to process that, especially when you see sort of behaviors and all that sort of stuff. It's not, none of it is real. So just remember that. Well, my point in all this is I'm looking at the video of Trump playing hockey, and I'm looking at the picture of Shakira in El Zonte, and you think, what's going to happen 30 years in the future? How are people going to be able to distinguish what is real and what is not? If we don't know, if we have no way to measure if things were distorted by AI. Or maybe that's always been the case. You know, you always hear people say, you hear this phrase, the people, I can't remember the axiom, but the idea is those who are in control are the ones who write history, something to that effect. There's many different axioms around that. And maybe that's just going to be an effect of AI, is going to amplify that effect, that we won't be able to determine anything was real. And that's not a very safe place for us to be in the future. So, for example, there's this little book here. For those of you who have not read it or seen it, I encourage you, honkingforfreedom.com. And I can promise you, of the, I don't know how many books that have been written about it, that I know there's another one that Bridget just brought out, but I haven't read yet. So let me wait to read it to comment on it. But all the other books that have already been released, I think there's 4 of them. They're all written by the political establishment. They're all fake, right? It's all protection. It's a protection racket for the conservatives, who are the ones who stabbed us in the back, by the way. Both the conservatives and the liberals did it together. This is not really political. This is all kind of the good stories, what was going on during that period. So this is the truth, but you have 4 fake books that it's the same narrative over and over again. You know, repetition is the godfather of persuasion, to brainwash its readers to think that those other books are accurate. And what's really amazing about it is those books are admissions by the authors that they are the ones who sold out their own protest, or the protest they were supposed to support, and people don't realize it. I think, do people just buy books and not read it? It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. But anyways, how are people going to be able to discern in the future what is real about this event? I mean, you have conflicting narratives even within the court system. You have that gong show that they call the public inquiry that was a complete joke. And then you have the ruling in the Supreme Court that basically rules the opposite, that the invocation of martial law in Canada, sorry, political nerds, I'm calling it martial law because that's what everybody knows what it is. The political nerds are always so hyper-focused on irrelevant minutia. They don't understand to be directionally accurate. So, but they're going to look at the ruling from the Supreme Court that affirmed and it was also appealed, that the invocation of martial law was a violation of law. So you got 4 books of horseshit, and then you have some truth. Who's going to know the truth is in the future? That's what AI is doing, but at a much more accelerated rate. So I don't know what the solution is, but I do think it's something to consider philosophically, the implications of AI distorting our history for the future. Like, is it Sam Altman gets to decide what people think is the truth in the future? That's just AI. That's just OpenAI, which I don't know if that company's going to last, to be entirely honest. He might, but whatever. Risa says, yeah, how about Hamas admitting that they now have to pay 50,000 wives of martyrs, meaning soldiers, who were eliminated after October 7th. Yeah, remember, 50,000 people killed. Well, turns out it was 50,000 terrorists for Hamas that were killed, which is what, so how are people going to discern in the future? Because you have this whole recycled narrative and database of fabricated claims that were completely false. And then here we go. We have admissions from the perpetrators of what they did. What's going to be the record of history in the future? I don't know. Also on AI, this was pretty interesting. There's an article, a post that was going around on X that I think got, last I checked, about 40 million tweets. So it's not specifically just to AI people. I think there's some philosophical framing that's important for people to understand. It's a post by Matt Schumer, and I think he's an executive, a CEO of one of the smaller AI startups. But he posts this. I don't like reading stuff, but this one's important. Let me read a little bit of what he said. He said, I am no longer needed for the actual technical work of my job. I describe what I want to build. He's a developer, obviously, within his company. I describe what I want to build in plain English, and it just appears. Not a rough draft. I need to fix. Not a rough draft I need to fix. The finished thing. I tell AI what I want. I walk away from my computer for 4 hours and come back to find the work done. Done well. Done better than I would have done it myself, with no corrections needed. A couple of months ago, I was going back and forth with the AI, guiding it, making edits. Now I just describe the outcome and leave. He goes on to say, let me give you an example so you can understand what this actually looks like in practice. I tell the AI, I want to build this app. Here's what it should do. Here's roughly what it should look like. Figure out the user flow, the design, and all of it. And it does. It writes tens of thousands of lines of code. Then, this is the part that would have been unthinkable a year ago. It opens up the app itself. It clicks through the buttons. It tests the features. It uses the app the way a person would. If it doesn't like how something looks or feels, it goes back and changes it on its own. I'm losing my place. Like a developer, it's fixing and refining until it's satisfied. Only once it has decided the app meets its own standards, think about it, only once it meets its own standards does it come back to me and say it's ready for you to test. When I test it, it's usually perfect. So it's making decisions, right? He goes on, he says, I'm not exaggerating. This is what my Monday looked like this week. What do you think? I wish people would stop. I'm sorry, I'm getting people who should know bothering me when they shouldn't. So the point of this is, where do we go with this? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of other examples. So think about this. Before I go on the other example, think about this. You just talk to the AI. You tell the AI, this is what I want you to do, and it does it. That's it. Well, where's the productivity? Maureen says, that's mind-bending. Maureen, just hold on 1 second. In other examples, I talked a little bit about what is now called OpenClaw, which was Maltbot, and before that was something Claude. 3 different names in 3 days, trademark issues, whatever. So this is the AI assistant model that you can give it an entire computer and it can do everything you need it to do. And it can do everything you do. So this example is amazing. A developer programmed OpenClaw, which is its current name, and so it gave it access to everything that it has. And it said, the guy said, I want you to negotiate. So to reach out, find this brand and model of car, negotiate and buy it, like negotiate the deal with the dealer. And what did the AI do? It started contacting dealerships, reaching out, sending emails, and then started negotiating the term of the purchase and how they're going to finance, because these are all things that were in the prompt. It started negotiating back and forth with the salesperson over email. And after, I don't know the period of time, I don't know if it was a day or 2 days, but it's something like that. Because it was waiting for responses, the AI would respond back, and it negotiated $4,200 off the purchasing price of the car. Somebody says, BJ, I haven't been able to figure out what is your preferred platform to support, Substack or Locals. Both are good. Either are good, and I'm going to be putting everything together. So whatever you think is better for you, how about that? And thank you, by the way. I appreciate the support. Much more is coming soon, I promise. So the AI went on its own, and it reached out and negotiated a $4,200 discount and arranged the deal. So when the guy got home from work, whenever the negotiating was done, the AI said to him, I've negotiated your car. This is the price. This is the date. I've sent in a down payment, I believe, because it had access to his banking. And you can go sign the deal and pick up your car. Computer did that. He did nothing. I'll give you another example. This was also OpenClaw. I think it was OpenClaw. I might be confusing too. I'm pretty sure this was. But he was a developer from an AI agent. And what he was trying to teach the agent to make dinner reservations for him for whatever reason. So, and he created a prompt and gave it parameters of what it could do, but didn't give it any guardrails, any barriers. Basically, could do whatever it want, whatever it could figure out how to negotiate, how to make a reservation. So, what did the AI do? The AI first contacted it downloaded an app. I guess it was whatever that restaurant app is online, Yelp or something like that. It downloaded an app, searched for the restaurant that he told it, contacted the restaurant. I don't know if it was a messenger or email, because an AI agent can do both. AI agent can use your iMessage and your phone number, whatever. Tried to contact the restaurant, sending messages and emails, didn't get a response. So did the AI stop? No, 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 no. No, 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 no. That's not what the AI didn't give up. AIs don't give up. That's the thing that is both fascinating and can be scary. What the AI did is it went and did some research of how it could communicate, many different ways it can communicate with a restaurant, and it found that many people call in reservations for their restaurants. So what do you think the AI did? It went and downloaded an app that allowed it to convert text to speech, and it can make phone calls. You know, you can make calls like through Google Phone in the US and stuff like that, or VoIP software like WhatsApp and stuff like that. So downloaded a text to speech translator, installed it, and then called the restaurant, pretended to be the person, so selected their name, got the maitre d' or whoever answers the phone to the restaurant, and the AI, without the person on the other end knowing, said, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. I want to book a reservation for tonight at such and such a time." And they figured out whatever the time was, and the restaurant confirmed the reservation. So when the developer got back to his computer later that day, at night, whenever it was, he realized that the AI took it on its own to realize, okay, I can't contact the restaurant via text or email. What creative solutions could I come up with to be able to finish this task? Think about that. Like that is, yes, it's an LLM, but there's something more there. That is absolutely fascinating, in my opinion. Anyways, what do you think of that? This is what happens when AI has no guardrails. And this is why guardrails are sometimes important. My understanding from my friends who have children that guardrails are very important. And yeah, so I think this is also the future is amazing. We got to be, once we figure out how to navigate this, I'm actually quite positive on AI. I think a lot of people get scared of this because it's new and they're not sure how it's going to fit in their lives. Sometimes our egos are impacted because we think, well, it's going to make us redundant. And I'm the opposite. I think all of us, myself, you, everybody, we're all very adaptable. And no matter how the world changes around us, we figure out a way to incorporate technology in our lives so it's not so disruptive, right? But anyways, that's those are the AI stories. I thought you would enjoy that. Quick comment here: Callum released a video. This YouTube channel called Britannica, obviously with two N's, but you can search it online. Callum asked me a while ago to join him in El Salvador. He wanted to do a documentary on El Salvador, and which is a fascinating video to watch. It's about an hour and a half, I believe, on YouTube. It's called El Salvador, the Bitcoin Dictatorship. Go check it out, and it gives kind of the narrative in English and the narrative in Spanish, and they are quite different in many cases. As somebody like Marcella, who's one of the co-hosts of the Scott Adams School, who is Salvadorian, she will acknowledge for many people. You should follow her on Twitter. And so, anyways, we went to El Salvador. We did this documentary, and why am I bringing this up? Because Callum does a bunch of travel videos, kind of a political overview, but not party politics. Just kind of this is what the people are like, this is what they think, and that's it. And he goes to some popular vacation destinations such as Ireland. Ireland's okay. Russia, okay, and Zimbabwe, or Rhodesia as he calls it, like okay, or Iraq, and okay, well, I ain't going to Iraq. Well, actually, I'd love to go to Iraq, but he's just released a video this week on Syria, and he was in Syria when the bombing started. When was that? 6 weeks ago. He was just about to leave the next day, and we were going back and forth over a text message, make sure he's okay. But watch his channel, Britannica. You will find it fascinating. It's better than watching Netflix, in my opinion. That's just kind of the stuff that I like to watch. But it's very funny. And he makes fun of it. The people who are primed to believe anything. My favorite part is he shows the low class people there, the kind of bottom feeders, who are digging holes below what used to be the synagogue, and they're looking for, quote, Jew gold. God, people are so dumb. And it's like all over the city. Like there's many instances of people looking. It's the funniest thing. By the way, just for anybody who is that dumb, there's no such thing. That's not what happens. I mean, is there such thing as Christian gold where they hide it under the church? Like that's not how people behave. But this is the Islamist communist brainwashing that is assigning opinions to people, and it really affects bottom feeders like that really easily. And you see that being tried in the West. That's what Tucker and crew are trying to do to you in the West, right? They're trying to make many of you kind of the low class sort of bottom feeders. They call you sheeple in politics. And because when you buy into ridiculous narratives over and over again, then you're easy to control, right? For a whole bunch of reasons, right? So if people believe that, the holes are digging, the people who believe that will believe anything. So, anyways, we'll set up my. Maureen says, "Well, the AI set up my maid appointment without my permission." This is why you need guardrails, Maureen. You tell it absolutely no maid, no matter what, right? And that's difficult because with guardrails, you have to think of everything. and I can understand the frustration. But there will be inevitably an AI. I mean, you can always prompt the AI to say, "What are the guardrails I should do?" Like maybe people don't understand, haven't realized this. So when I prompt things in AI, I create a very very long prompt for different work that I'm doing, and then I give the prompt back to the AI and I say to the AI, okay, help me improve this prompt that I'm going to use with, I don't know, an image generator AI. What can I do and it'll spit something out. And I'm like, okay, I don't like that. I want to edit this here and there. And I go back and forth and I use basically the prompting platform to help me create prompts for other platforms that are prompting platforms. So it's prompt inception. But if you use AI that way, you'll find. So if you say to the AI, I'm creating all of this, this is my prompt and whatever, but I need some suggestions for guardrails. What are some guardrails I haven't considered? It will and I don't want to die. It will likely come up with that stuff. Yes, Maureen, cuídate. Adi, habla español. Muy bien. Okay, so Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl. This was, I think this is a fun topic for me. A little bit frustrating, but funny. So the communists on BlueSky, we'll start with this. We're celebrating that Bad Bunny gave a shout out to Canada. Shout out. He said the word Canada. Is that a shout out? He said the name of every country in North and South America, which is why you'll see the thumbnail of this of this feed is a cartoon that I hope actually reflects what was going on. But I did post something to Twitter, well, X, TikTok, maybe Instagram. I don't know, a bunch of the feeds. And I posted this. I said, I have questions. Number one, this is about Bad Bunny mentioning Canada. Why is he, meaning Bad Bunny, why is he mentioning Canada? Canada is a racist, colonial, post-national state with no cultural identity, according to the blackface Trudeau regime. Number two, why doesn't Bad Bunny know how to say Estados Unidos? He says United States. It's Estados Unidos. He doesn't speak Spanish. I guess he's illiterate in two languages. And by the way, there are lots of people like that, as I learned when I learned Spanish. And the other thing is, why wasn't he wearing a dress this time? So wearing the dress, I don't know, because he apparently likes to wear dresses. El loco. But the comments that I received were the cognitive dissonance comments were hysterical. You know, the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance. They were mostly something, Trump is a racist. So when you go from, hey, why is Bad Bunny mentioning Canada? Because according to the blackface Carney Trudeau regime, Canada is a racist, colonial, post-national state with no cultural identity. That's their words, not mine. They said that for a decade. They said that. So the response I would get to that, to Trudeau and Carney's defamation of Canada and stripping of its culture, the response I got was something, Trump is a racist. Okay. Remember those 7 signs of cognitive dissonance? That's number 1. That's changing the topic, right? Trying to move it over to Trump. And then Trump made some comments about Bad Bunny, and he said apparently nobody understands a word this guy is saying, referring to Bad Bunny in this, referring to the thing. He says nobody understands a word this guy is saying. The dancing is disgusting, especially for young children that are watching from throughout the United States and all over the world. And here's the comment that should give you some hope, and why I try to talk to people who are, obviously, I have friends who are liberal, but we're all, anyways, but I'm trying to reach out to people even on the kind of the other side, the extreme side. This is a comment, and this, I guess, would be somebody who's progressive. And this person says, again, I'm going to repeat Trump's comment that dancing is disgusting, especially for young children that are watching from throughout the United States and all over the world. And the comment from this progressive was, I hate Trump and everything he stands for, but I'm with him on this. Think about that. A progressive says, I hate Trump and everything and anything he stands for, but I'm with him on this. And that's the thing that's interesting. It's much like people on the left would smear Trump people and say, "Oh, you're just a cult. You love everything he says." And you talk to people like, "No, I don't like these 5 things about Trump, but what are you going to do? You know, there's a lot of things I do like." I think we can be as charitable to some people on the liberal side that just because somebody's really confused, in my opinion, on their maybe philosophical or political leanings, doesn't mean they agree 100% of everything they're supporting. We got to get away from this bifurcation that we all think everybody is all in or nothing. You know, the zero sum game bifurcation of the world, because I don't think that's how we are. This is my experience. I live in a very progressive area when I'm in Canada, and people here, would disagree obviously on a lot of stuff, but people are good with me. Well, we get along. We respect each other. So Claudia then sent a message, and Claudia is a Latina, and she says, "Why the f do they always portray the Latin American women as if the only thing they can do is shake their rear end?" Think about that. Is that not what you're seeing? Is that what you don't see? Is that what you see in the cultural zeitgeist? And I would agree, having spent lots of time in Latin America and lots of time outside of Latin America, that this is the dominance positioning of American propaganda. All country has this. It's really wild. When you're near Latin America, it's like the economic force in Latin American news, this has always blew me away, was Mexico. Like they see Mexico as this massive economic behemoth in many Latin American countries, but you don't see that framing of the world if you're living outside of Latin America, right? So every country does this, tries to assert themselves as the dominant position, right? One of the things you hear in Canada is, "Oh, Canadians are so friendly." Well, guess what? That's what Colombians say. So this sort of propaganda is recycled from political establishments all over the world, right? But I think what they're doing, what the American psyche does to depict Latin America in a certain way, I think it's subconscious. I don't think it's intentional. Like, think about Latin America. It's this subtle framing that Latin America is like, I don't know, like Darfur. Everybody's short, brown, native looking, poor, doesn't have water, struggling to survive, all that sort of stuff, right? It's third world nation. And again, I don't think it's intentional. I think it's subconscious. Um, and I would also argue this is the main reason for, again, subconscious animosity towards the United States throughout the region for those people who have it. Because you want to make people angry, target their identity, and then distort it, which is what they're doing. So of course it's going to drive animosity. And I'm not picking out the United States. Every country does this, right? And if we're aware that this is what happened, it becomes easier to dismiss and not take things so harshly, right? And what's interesting is my experience. Most places that I've been in Latin America, everybody looks either European or mixed. And some countries also have a larger African community. They call them Afro Latino, but there it's not an issue. Like they don't focus on their race all the time. The communists are trying to infuse that in Latin America, but with very little success. And the people I always heard so many times, soy colombiano. It doesn't matter what your race, identity, all that's kind of how they are in Latin America, because they don't have time to waste with all this bourgeois BS of, oh, I'm not from LA, I'm from the Valley. Like, that's not how people got lives to live. They have responsibilities they got to take care of, right? What else is interesting about Latin America, and I think Marcella would agree with me, is and again, it's such a stark contrast between central casting in California in the movie industry, where this seems to all come from, and the reality. Most of my friends in Latin America they tend to be more academic, more intellectual, more professional types, and they're very formal, way more formal than we are. Like, did you know in Latin American culture, they look at Canadians and Americans that we all dress and look like lazy slobs? Think about that. What does that do to your mind? When everything you've been taught about what Mexico is, the stereotype, the Pancho Tequila, Juan Valdez, and that sort of stuff. Um, they look at us as slobs because we're so informal and that we're lazy and all we do is eat. Might be right. And we don't walk, which I think is the main reason everybody's gained so much weight. And it's even in their language. Like they're not only formal culturally, they're formal in their language and how they speak to each other. Way more formal than people are in the Anglosphere. It's a perfect example when you learn Spanish in Colombia, especially the difference between tú and usted. When you have a friend, you say you say tú. If it's somebody you don't know, it's usted. It's like it's a formal word that we don't have. We don't have a formal you. It's just you. They actually have language that's more formal. They dress more formal. It's not tolerated, at least in my experience, in different offices in Latin America. When you go to the office, it's hotter. So because it's hotter, and it's hotter. It's cold actually in a lot of cities. It doesn't have the same. That's going to be a whole other conversation. Let's just say the climate is different. Okay, and you have a lot more humidity, even though it's sometimes cooler. So they don't have thicker suits like we have in Canada, the northern parts of the United States. New York, for example. But you work in an office, you go to an office, dress like you work in an office, and they take pride in that. Like we take pride in, oh, I can go to the office, who's casual and dress like what Latinos would call a slob. They look down on that massively. They do not endear that. Um, Heidi says, sorry, Spanish. Their English isn't great either. um, yeah, she says most gringos don't bother to learn English. Well, Heidi, is this where I start? It's what makes my American friends crazy is when I hear the letter Z, which comes from Sesame Street, because the letter is actually Z. But anyways, let's focus on our commonalities, not our some. But my point is, why am I bringing this up? Because it's really disrespectful, in my opinion, of Latin America to always paint Latin America like it's Darfur, when in fact, they are more formal than you are. They are more traditional than you and I are. And this is why Latinos who go to Latin America should be, naturally, more to the conservative side of the spectrum, even though they tend to bring in people from lower classes. They call it costeñas, from lower classes. But even they are more conservative and formal in their worldview. And I'm not saying that is right or wrong, because I have many issues I'm very conservative on, many issues I'm quite liberal on, as many of you know. But I think just it's to be respectful of their culture. And the problem is, this is what the Bad Bunny nonsense perpetuates, right? This is why you think Latin America is Darfur, because of garbage like Bad Bunny, who are illiterate in two languages. That is not reflective of their culture at all. And in fact, to most of them, to the ones who are educated, it's insulting. And that's the view that I've seen most commonly. So while people in America are outraged that Bad Bunny doesn't speak English at the Super Bowl, Latinos are outraged that that doesn't represent me either. And by the way, I don't use this stupid word Hispanic. They're not from Spain. They're from Latin America. They're Latino. If they're from Spain, then they're Hispanic. Again, gringos in English, right? But anyways, so that is it's very interesting, and I think it's very important for us to understand that they are much more like us in the West than people realize. So I always encourage people to go to Latin America, and if you go there, you experience this in a very different level. Um, it's pretty wild. So I hope that kind of covers it. And Heidi and Marcella, I hope I have done some justice to help communicate how you guys feel when you see this sort of reggaeton. You know, Puerto Rico is not Latin America. It's a country in Latin America, a holding in the United States. But Puerto Rican culture is not Latin America. Latin American culture, and every country's different. Like they have many different traditions and worldviews, but in general, it's way more formal and traditional. Like you go into an office and you're not dressed like wearing slacks and a button-down shirt at least and maybe a jacket, what do they think? Oh, there's a sloppy American tourist. Just telling you how they see it. So a lot of you would like it a lot more than you realize. Okay, the last topic I want to go into, which is important. We're going to talk more about this. By the way, yes, we did this today, 10:30. We're going to do it tomorrow, 10:30, and Sunday at 10:30 because there's a bunch of stuff we all got to cover. And I appreciate all of you sending me comments and your questions. And I love the haters as well. The haters are the best. They're my favorite, really. Um, and in Discord, obviously, for those of you who are there, let me sort out the infrastructure. We'll get more of you into Discord if you want to share articles and stuff with each other. And on Substack, which we're here right now. Wow, we got 500 and something people on Substack. You guys are all amazing. And so Substack and Discord and Locals, those three, I think are going to be the primary places we share information. And I got something very special planned out for Locals and as well for Substack, which will be more of these articles that end up getting into publications like Daily Bell, Zero Hedge, National Telegraph, all that sort of stuff, because there's a lot of stuff working on, right? Uh, Maureen says South America in general is fabulous in its cultural heritage. It is absolutely amazing. Absolutely love it. And I was disappointed when I couldn't make it to Colombia a few weeks ago when my flight was canceled because it was snowing every day of the year, right? Risa says the post. Okay, Risa, we'll talk about that after. You're awesome. All right. People get upset when I read the comments in the middle of the stream, so I'm going to stop doing that. Okay, captured media. I want to present this idea, and then we can maybe talk about this more through the weekend. We used to talk about this binary framing of the world. I did, we all did, which was legacy media versus alternative media. And we all know what that means. You know, legacy media, communist broadcasting crap, the mental illness NBC or whatever it's called now. The ones that we call the dirty smear merchants, right? Usually on the left, right? And which is the reason I banned them from the trucker convoy. And boy, did they get upset with it. For those of you who are new here who don't know, I'll explain it. So during the trucker convoy, in my attempt to bait the media, which if you remember at the very beginning, the media was trying to ignore it. So what I did is I put a post out that we're going to have our first press conference for the trucker convoy. And at that point, it was all over social media. It was like the 5 top trending hashtags were the trucker convoy that myself and other people were making popular. And I put out a post, and then I ended up emailing people in the media because I have a media email list. And I basically said, if you want to come to our first press conference for the Freedom Convoy, the trucker convoy in Ottawa, send us a request to this email. I was using Eventbrite to do it, and we'll try to accommodate you as best we can because we have a small venue. And so I got all of these messages coming in, and the first one, I think it was the Globe and Mail. I don't remember, but I got one almost immediately. Yes, I would like to attend, and it was just kind of my guilty pleasure. I even typed them out by hand just because it was fun. My response is I'd send an email and I would say, "I'm sorry, we don't recognize you as a credible news agency. You're not permitted to attend." It went so crazy. And one after another kept doing that. All these news agencies. Oh, I'm sorry, you're not a credible news agency. New York Times. Nope, sorry, you're not a credible news agency. Because I knew I could have far greater reach if I could utilize alternative media and get legacy media to start smearing us and calling us racist, which is exactly what they did. They were going to do that anyways. Whether they came to our press conference or not, we knew they would. I knew they would call us names. So what do we need them there to call us names? Let them call us names on their own. Let me just make them angry, and let me focus on the 100 million views I was looking for in alternative media. Right. So I've talked more about this in the past, and but just to get into something broader. So that was the distinction at that time between legacy media and alternative media. Well, I want to introduce a new idea, and this is what's going on today because the media landscape in the world has changed. And that is this term, captured media. And what is captured media? Do you remember, and I'm sure it's still the same way, I haven't listened to, we used to call it testicle radio. That's, we turn on the car, the radio station that nobody listens to. Not all of them. There's still some good ones, and I go on with Mark Petroni on his show. But anyways, you would turn on the news, and remember this? I remember starting to see this massively in the 90s when I was first started to drive. You turn on the radio, and you would hear 5 news stories. You turn on another channel, you'd hear the same 5 news stories. And you go to another channel, the same 5 news stories over and over again. Every 20 minutes, every 30 minutes, the same news stories over and over again, every day. What I tell you about persuasion. Repetition is the godfather of persuasion. And people will care about what they hear about most frequently, which is why you hear the same 5 news stories over and over again, because somebody wants you to focus on that. Usually lobbyists in the political class, corporate interests, special interests, now NGOs or terrorist groups, or there's a whole bunch of different competing interests. So you would hear the same 5 news stories over and over again, and this is what gave birth to alternative media. This is why I went the direction of podcasting. I don't know, a decade ago is when I first started to do experimenting with podcasts, and I was already deep into listening to podcasts. I wanted nothing to do with it. I get so annoyed. The same 5 news propaganda stories every day. It was infuriating, especially somebody like myself who likes to travel around the world. I want to know about what's happening around the world. I don't want to just know the same local, whatever. So you get the point. All right. So what has happened? Well, something changed since February 2022. What happened then? That was the trucker protest. And remember, this was covered all over the world. And I know this because I was getting all the media requests. I-24, DW, ABC Australia, BBC, CBC, all of them were trying to get me on for interviews. And I just turned them all down and just focused on alternative media because, again, all they were going to do is smear us or potentially smear us. Whereas I knew I could dominate the alternative media space, or we could, our entire, movement, right? So that time was a pivotal moment in media. And we also remember we had 40 protests. There were almost 40 protests, 40 countries around the world that had protests just like ours, right? So something changed right at that moment. I mentioned this private conversation I had with Jordan Peterson, and we were talking about, media politics. This was, I don't know, a year after the trucker convoy or something like that. And it was evident and explained to me that the political class realized I was right and was going to abandon legacy media in their next election and use exclusively alternative media for their comm strategy, their communication strategy, because they realized that it worked. And that's despite the fact that during the trucker convoy, I had, these subverters, these dingbats who came in to sabotage us, chasing me around the room saying, you got to go on the CBC. You go on the CBC. I'm like, F off, Keith. You're not needed here. Goodbye. Leave. It's global for a reason. It's not because of you or some of the other trash you brought here, right? Um, so this moment, this pivotal moment, was when there was this shift. When they realized, as Jordan explained to me, they realized that the alternative the alternative media strategy was the path forward. So what's happened since then? Have you noticed when you watch live streamers, podcasters, whatever they are? What have you noticed? Have you noticed what I've noticed? What I've noticed is this. It's the same 5 stories every day. Think about that. Doesn't matter what platform you're watching, it's always the same 5 news stories. And it's almost like there's a club of podcasters and streamers who have artificially boosted numbers. They're using the same strategy as Vice News used, so their views are not real. And then they're recycling the same guests over and over again. How many times has Dave Smith been on Tucker Carlson News? Well, you can't have somebody else on. It's this comedian who's never told a joke. Oh, that's right, because that's one wing of one political cartel that's trying to brainwash people through repetition over and over again. The point where all that changed was the media strategy during the trucker convoy when they realized legacy media no longer has the power that it used to have. This is the whole, like this whole idea of capturing these people who we're watching online as being influencers. That was the whole point of my article, the one I did that I think it's in Zero Hedge as well. The one that's about Tenet Media and Tucker Carlson. It's a year ago now, or a year and a half ago. That's what that was about. That's what I was trying to explain to people. Because this is how the gears of the machine works. They captured legacy media. It's lost all its influence and persuasion. So now there is this long strategy that started with the biggest protest in Canadian history and the longest convoy in human history got out of their hands, and they realized we need to capture alternative media. This is why you see the same news stories and the same 2 or 3 different opinions recycled from the same groups of people over and over and over again. So this is the phenomenon of captured media. So it's no longer legacy media versus alternative media. It's captured media and non-captured media. And the non-captured media is the media that has smaller analytics, right? Like when you see somebody who comes out of, somebody who just starts. I've produced a lot of podcasts. I know what organic growth has looked like. Somebody creates a podcast or a YouTube channel or whatever, and then boom, they have 30,000 views in the first 3 weeks. That's not real. That is absolutely not real. That is political capture using click farms, which maybe I'll explain click farms another time. Paul, well, thank you, Paul. And Paul, by the way, thank you for all your kind comments. You're amazing. And by the way, this is one of the reasons I I loved listening to Scott Adams so much, because Scott Adams knew this, and he understood the different interests and political cartels that I refer them. He wouldn't use that word, but that are always vying over a power position. I mean, it's just that's how human beings are. So he could see the full map of all the different interest groups that are trying to be the dominant force to persuade people in one direction or another. And this is why I was very comfortable with him, because he, like me, just because I understand these political cartel doesn't mean I don't have supporters within them, because everybody works at a company. Everyone's taking a paycheck and sometimes not agreeing with some of the policies of their company or their political party. I get it. People got bills to pay. But this is just the structure of how everything works, right? And this is also is why when you see these capture and containment strategies, this is how you end up getting conservatives supporting communist positions like Free Palpatine, which came from the KGB. I mean, that was a proxy war in the Middle East, and the guys that nobody the Groypers are obsessed with, those were the West, and the communists were on the Palpatine side because that's what they created. They created that identity. So this has been the case, but now because it's so easy to measure instantly the results, and Scott Adams has talked about this, this is what's allowed it to accelerate at a much more rapid rate in the way that people get brainwashed and persuaded into a philosophical frame that is the complete opposite of what they think their philosophical framing of the world is. This is what's happening. The suspension of critical thinking is my favorite term for hypnosis. It's not entirely accurate, but the way it's being used in the media landscape, I think, is the best way to describe it. And this is why I'm trying to engage more with people who are centrist, liberal, even some woke content creators. We'll see how that goes. Because they are being subjected to the same thing. That's what's making them woke. That's how you get people who are like, oh, yes, human rights, but I'm with the people who burn women alive. This is why, because they're being subjected to the same strategy. It's crazy. But I think we can fix it. And I think AI might be a big part of it. And this is also why you see garbage like Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl. Now you understand what it is? That's part of the captured media propaganda industry, which we're going to talk more about that. That's what that represented. That's why when I saw Bad Bunny, I'm very, as you know, I'm very pro Latin America, very pro Latino. I love the culture. I love the language, as bad as my Spanish is. But that's what it is. And Maureen says, okay, Maureen, I'm going to push back against you just a little bit, and I love you. Maureen says lemmings. I think it's simpler than that. I don't know that it's it. I think people, firstly, we're all emotionally driven. We all make emotional decisions and post-rationalize. That's something Scott Adams talked about frequently. That didn't come from him. That comes from hypnosis. But the other thing is people are busy. People have so many things in their lives. People are starting to pay their bills. They got kids. They got lives and responsibilities, and they got to report at work, and they're afraid of losing their job. People have a lot of things in their lives. So, I don't want to say they're struggling. They're just, there's only so much bandwidth that we have, right? And I think that's what this strategy exploits. So I hope that helps, and I hope you can see Bad Bunny as an example of captured media. And another contrast that it fuels is people who think it's hysterical. They think they are anti-consensus, they're anti-establishment, they're contrarian, and they have the most mainstream opinions of anybody. So they think they're a hipster, but all their opinions are more mainstream than they could ever be. That's another example, but you see a lot of that. Scott was best when he said, "You may not like what I'm going to say." Yes, and I should have said that. I said that last time, but that's important because I want to be able to say things that you disagree with, and we can have a back and forth, especially in Discord and I guess on locals and in any feeds, like when I get all of it finally finished, when we have it all polished. I want people to see what civil discourse looks like. So just because we may disagree with each other on minutia doesn't mean we're at each other's throats. And if that's where we can bring people back to, and I think there's even some people amongst the far left who bought into some stuff that I know they don't agree with philosophically. If we can bring those people over and just to kind of a center ground to at least have a conversation and lose the rage. Now, what's the rage? I've discussed this before. It's called a painted word. A painted word is when you say a word to somebody and boom, straight to the amygdala and they go crazy. A painted word is Trump, right? Through repetition, Trump, Hitler, Trump, Hitler, Trump, Hitler, Trump, Hitler. Eventually, they hear the word Trump, they think Hitler, and they go crazy. So when you see somebody like that and you even say, yeah, I don't like Trump completely, but I like some things, boom, you're the enemy because you set off their amygdala. And what's Tucker Carlson doing? I guess he's shifting, but he was doing for a while. He's still doing it, but in a different way. It was Israel genocide, Israel genocide, Israel genocide, Israel genocide, Israel genocide, Israel genocide, over and over again. Tucker Carlson was trying to create a painted word that triggers the libertarian amygdala and makes them go crazy when they hear the word, all in service to the Muslim Brotherhood. So I hope this helps. We're gone way too late. I got to start. The difficulty is making things concise, and I don't want to waste all of your time. So 20 minutes over, but we're going to do it again tomorrow at 10:30. A little bit of positivity. What did I tell you? I told you it's going to get warmer. It's gotten warmer. The days are getting longer. And AI, I know many people are technologically resistant, and I'm not, but I do have people in my life that are like that, and I understand that. But AI is bringing such amazing things to the world. What I would suggest for a lot of people, I think people are being sold AI. Oh, it's a productivity tool. It's useful and whatever it is. And you're going to hand off its responsibilities. And people are like, hey, no one's going near my bank account. I don't want to get hacked. I get it. So instead of focusing, if you're one of those people who's nervous about AI because of its security implications or maybe financial implications or whatever, forget about that for a second. Go towards the arts. There's music, there's visual imagery, animation, video creation. Just play with those AI tools. Play with the AI tools that you don't think would be a threat to how you organize your life and how you pay your bills. Just find the fun ones and just get comfortable using it. And over time, you'll find the threat factor that you're feeling about AI, it's not real. It's artificial. It's just something new you're not familiar with. And when you learn how to prompt in something that's creative and fun and doesn't have any negative implications on your life, and you get comfortable with it, then you're going to slowly shift over to, well, you know what? Yeah, maybe I can try utilizing one of the AI tools for, I don't know, for writing, for whatever it is, letters, emails, a letter to an MP or something like that, a House representative or whatever. It doesn't necessarily, it makes your productivity, it accelerates your productivity, but you got to do a whole lot of work to get to that point. It used to be, Scott Adams would talk about this, that AI makes everything takes 10 times longer. I think those are the initial setup costs. I think that's where we are right now. We're going to be here for a while. Like I haven't installed OpenClaw yet. I'm going to eventually. I know that's going to be a 6-month process of installing it, learning it, figuring out how it works and whatever. I'm going to have to invest many months of my life whenever I have time in setting this up, but it will pay massive dividends over the long term. But don't worry about that now. Just focus on art. Music is amazing. This is how I'm able to put out, I created the song for this, created lyrics, figured out what I wanted to do, grabbed my guitar, did like a thing, and it spit out something close. There were some differences, but I had to do like one particular song I did like 50 times till I got where I wanted it to be, and then I'll open up the editor and change it, but whatever. The point is, that's not something that I'm investing in my time that could be potentially scary in my life. And if you do that, I promise you, you may find it becomes kind of a hobby, or at least maybe it enhances hobbies that you already have. Risa says the word conservative has also become painted. It has for people on the left side of the political spectrum, but more alarmingly, in my opinion, is conservatives have been trying to paint the word liberal. The Liberal Party in Canada is a problem, there's no question. But we live in a liberal democracy. Because if we don't have a liberal democracy, what are our choices? Serfdom, fascism, communism, authoritarianism, I don't know, kingdom. That this is liberal democracy is that doesn't mean you're not conservative. But if you are a conservative, and let's say you're opposed to, I don't know, you're opposed to same-sex marriage. Let's assume that you're opposed to same-sex marriage. You're still allowing those people to live. It's not your business, right? You may not like it, but you go on with your life. That's what liberty is, which is where liberal philosophy comes from. And I think conservatives are trying to paint the word liberal, or trying to make the word liberal a painted word. So when people hear the word liberal, they goes straight to the media and it goes crazy. But that's the whole essence of gives you the freedom to complain about whatever we want to complain about. You talk about shooting yourself in the foot. This is why I recommend people read Stephen Hicks's work. You can find him on X at SRC Hicks. Or you can listen to our podcast we do together, Open College with Stephen Hicks. He is a philosopher who does not like labels like me. He's not liberal. He's not conservative. He's not libertarian. He's an individualist, and believes in focusing on the individual person. That doesn't mean we don't have common traits. We don't have opinions that may be defined as more conservative or more liberal or more, even sometimes progressive. Listen, if you send me to Iran today and I see what women are doing, what that regime is doing to women in Iran, in the context of Iran, they would consider all of us progressive because we don't think women are property that should be bound and gagged. I hope you don't think that. So everything, like all language is contextual, but sometimes so is philosophy. All right, LTW Bisque likes your content. Well, thank you very much. And Heidi, thank you very much. You are amazing. And maybe one day, I got to do a couple more speeches in Spanish. I got to get a little bit better. My first speech in Spanish was a little rusty. But at some point, it would be great to do at least Twitter Spaces, maybe a stream on a separate feed in Spanish at some point. But I love you all. I got to run. I'm way late on this one, but you're all amazing. Thank you for joining. And we will do this again tomorrow. Be kind to people. Be kind to strangers. I promise you, it'll change your life. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye now. Why won't? You might still have.